There are goodbyes that happen without a door closing, just a look that says you were never invited in. I thought I was traveling to meet my first grandbaby. I did not know I was walking into a quiet exile. A hospital hallway can feel like a tunnel, cold lights above warm joy behind a closed door, and one sentence can turn a mother into a stranger without raising its voice. If stories about family boundaries and quiet strength speak to you, subscribe to this channel, not for drama that screams, for truth that whispers then stands up. Now let me tell you how a 6-hour trip ended with a bill I never agreed to pay. My name is Lorraine Brooks, I am 67 years old, and I am a Black woman who learned to carry pain with posture. I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, in a small brick house with a narrow porch and a faithful kettle. I'm not wealthy, but I am careful. I budget like a habit, and I pay what I owe. And I pay what I owe. I worked for decades as an accounts clerk in a medical supply warehouse. Numbers were my language for stability. When my son Evan called to say his wife was in labor, my hand started shaking before my voice did. He sounded excited, but also clipped like someone reading from a schedule. He said they were at St. Catherine's Medical Center in New York City. The words felt unreal in my kitchen. New York was not my world, but a grandson is a bridge, and I wanted to cross it. I booked the bus that same evening. 6 hours overnight, seat fabric rough against my coat. The window fogged with my breath. The city lights smeared into long, tired lines. I held a small gift bag on my lap, a yellow baby blanket and a pair of soft booties. In my purse, I carried an old photo of Evan at 5, his gap-toothed smile, my arms around him. I kept telling myself the same sentence. This is what families do. They show up, even when it is inconvenient, even when it costs more than it should. I pictured the moment I would stand beside my son, a quiet witness to his becoming. I pictured a nurse placing that baby in my arms, warm weight, new life, clean beginnings. The bus rolled in before dawn. The station smelled like coffee and wet concrete. I went into the restroom, washed my face, smoothed my gray curls with water and patience. I changed into a simple navy dress, not fancy but respectful, the kind that does not beg for approval. Then I took a cab to the hospital, my stomach tight, my fingers cold around the strap of my purse. St. Catherine's was awake in that sterile way hospitals are, buzzing but emotionally distant. Fluorescent lights flickered above the check-in desk. The air carried antiseptic and burnt toast. Families moved like flocks. Some crying, some laughing, most clutching phones like lifelines. I walked to labor and delivery. My shoes squeaked on the floor with each nervous step. I texted Evan, "I'm here, sweetheart." 3 minutes passed. Then 5. Then my phone buzzed with a short reply. "Meet me by the elevators. 2nd floor. No heart emoji. No mom. I'm so glad. Just directions." I stood near the elevators, watching the numbers change like a slow countdown. When Evan appeared, he looked older than his 36 years. Tired eyes, wrinkled shirt phone still in hand. He hugged me quickly, 1 arm, 1 second like a formality. Then he glanced down the hall, as if checking whether someone might see us. "Mom," he said, and the way he said it felt like a warning. I smiled anyway, because I wanted to protect the moment from my own fear. I came as fast as I could, I told him, keeping my voice soft. "How is she? How is the baby?" He did not answer right away. He exhaled and rubbed the back of his neck. "Valerie is fine," he said. "The doctors say everything's moving along." My chest loosened. Relief can be physical, like a not giving up. "Thank God," I whispered. Then I caught myself and just nodded. I lifted the gift bag slightly, a small peace offering, a quiet joy. "I brought a blanket," I said. "Nothing big, just love." Evan's eyes flicked to the bag, then away, like the sight made him uncomfortable. He swallowed once, and his voice dropped lower. "Mom," he said, "Valerie wants only her own family here." The words did not hit like a slap. They hit like cold water under warm clothes. I stared at him, waiting for the rest, waiting for the correction. He did not correct it. I tried to keep my face steady. Dignity first, then heartbreak later. "I'm family," I said, gentle, confused, not accusing. Evan's jaw tightened. He glanced toward the closed doors behind him. Then he added, almost in a whisper, "Don't push it. She never wanted you." For a second, the hallway noises blurred, as if someone turned down the world. A cart rolled by. A nurse laughed softly. A baby cried behind a door. I stood there holding my gift bag, suddenly too visible and strangely erased. I looked at my son's face, searching for the boy I raised. I found shame. Not cruelty, not courage, just shame that needed me to disappear. He could not meet my eyes for more than a breath. He shifted his weight, like this conversation was a task he wanted done. "Please, Mom," he said again, "just for today." I could have argued. I could have reminded him of sacrifices and years and names, but the hospital is not a courtroom, and begging would have made me smaller, so I nodded once. Slow, controlled, like signing my own exit. "Okay," I said. "I understand." Evan's shoulders loosened with relief. That relief cut deeper than anger would have. He patted my arm, a gesture that felt like a manager closing a meeting. "Thank you," he said. Then his phone buzzed, and he looked away. I watched him turn back toward the door, and he did not look back. I walked down the corridor alone, past framed posters about newborn care and smiling families. I passed a waiting area where a man held balloons. His mother clapped softly beside him. I kept my steps even, because tears in public felt like giving them extra power. Outside, the air was sharp, winter wind sliding under my collar like an insult. I sat on a bench near the entrance, hands folded, gift bag resting at my feet. Cars pulled up and left. Everyone had a purpose, a person, a place to belong. I checked my phone once. No message from Evan, no update, no apology. I told myself to breathe. Slow in, slower out, like I used to do at hard moments. That night, I stayed in a cheap hotel 3 blocks away. Walls thin, heat rattling, silence loud. I did not sleep much. I stared at the ceiling and listened to my own thoughts accuse me. Maybe I should have tried harder. Maybe I should not have come. But then I pictured my grandson, innocent, arriving into a family already divided. On the 3rd day after I returned home, my phone rang while my coffee cooled. The number was unfamiliar. The area code was New York. I expected Evan. Maybe a soft apology. Maybe a photo. Maybe a scrap of kindness. Instead, a woman's professional voice said, "Ma'am, this is the hospital billing office." She spoke politely, like she was reading a script she had read 1,000 times. "There is a remaining balance of $10,000, she said, "and your number was listed for payment contact." My hand tightened around the mug. Heat against my palm, cold spreading through my chest. I stared at the steam rising, and I felt something inside me turn very still. Have you ever been pushed out with one sentence, then called back only when money was needed? After the call, I did not rush to defend myself. Defense sounds like guilt when spoken too fast. I opened the hallway closet and pulled out a cardboard box. It was heavier than I remembered, like truth often is. Inside were old folders, manila envelopes, and a spiral notebook with a bent corner. Paper smells do not fade. They keep their own memory. I sat at the kitchen table and stacked the contents carefully, not to count favors, to remember facts. I have never been a dependent woman. I paid my rent on time, my utilities early, my debts fully. When I helped my son, it was not because I could not live alone. It was because I could and I chose to. The notebook held dates and amounts in my neat hand. Not totals, not balances, just notes to myself. Fall semester paid one line read. Another said, roof repair advance reimbursed later. Later never arrived and I never asked. Evan's tuition came first years ago. He was accepted to a state university with a partial scholarship. The letter praised his potential and explained the gap. I remember the kitchen light flickering as I read it twice. I worked extra shifts that winter. I packed lunches instead of buying them. I stopped replacing shoes until the soles thinned. I wrote the check without drama and mailed it early. I did not frame that check. I did not mention it at holidays. I told Evan to focus on class and sleep. He thanked me once quietly like a child unsure of tone. The receipts show books, lab fees, a parking permit. Small things add up when added faithfully. I kept the stubs because that is how I am, not suspicious, organized. When Evan bought his first house, the inspection found problems. The roof needed work, the wiring needed updates. He sounded embarrassed on the phone, like a boy asking for a ride. I listened, then asked for the estimates. I paid the roofer directly to save interest. I covered the electrician after confirming the license. I did not co-sign a loan. I avoided entanglements. I wrote checks with clear memos and no expectations. I told myself it was temporary help. I told myself a good start matters. I told myself to let him stand tall in his own living room. The notebook says house repairs short-term. Years later, when Evan and Valerie had their first child, schedules shifted. Daycare costs startled them. Work hours collided. I lived 30 minutes away, then closer than now. I offered mornings twice a week and kept my word. I arrived early, left late, and learned their routines. I warmed bottles, folded laundry, and memorized nap cues. I never posted photos. I never claimed credit. I was there to help them breathe. I remember the weight of that baby asleep on my chest. I remember the sound of the dishwasher at dawn. I remember Valerie thanking me, once distracted, sincere enough. Then life sped up as it does. When expenses rose, I helped quietly. Groceries during tight months, a car repair that could not wait, a medical copay when insurance lagged. I did not announce these things. I did not set conditions. I did not track interest or demand repayment. The notebook holds notes, not leverage. Some entries end with question marks I never resolved. Repaid one line asks, then trails off. I left it that way on purpose. Closure is not always necessary. I never moved in with them. I never asked for keys I did not need. I never rearranged their furniture or their rules. Boundaries matter even when love is strong. I kept my own life intact. I worked part-time after retirement. I volunteered on Saturdays and walked my street on Sundays. Independence was my spine, not my shield. People confuse help with dependence. They confuse generosity with weakness. They assume support implies control. I have learned to let assumptions pass. The folders held warranties, bank slips, and a folded tax return. Nothing dramatic, nothing secret, just proof that I paid when I said I would, and proof that I did not ask to be rescued. I paused at one receipt, thin and faded. It was for a crib mattress purchased late one night. Valerie had texted stressed, unsure. I told her to rest and sent the money. I did not attach a lecture. I did not expect a photo. I did not think of it as leverage for the future. I thought of it as care in the moment. The notebook ends before last year. I stopped writing entries because life felt stable. Stability invites silence, and silence felt earned. I trusted the quiet. And that was my mistake. I am not listing these things to demand applause. I am listing them because truth requires context, because erasure thrives when memory goes unspoken, because facts stand when feelings wobble. When Evan said his wife wanted only her own family present, I believed him. I believed there was a line I had crossed without knowing. Now, with paper spread before me, I see the pattern. I was welcome when useful, invisible when inconvenient. The old receipts did not make me angry. They made me calm. Calm clarifies. Calm separates generosity from obligation. I stacked the folders neatly and returned them to the box. I did not tear anything up. I did not photograph evidence for a future argument. I closed the lid and slid it back. I washed my hands and dried them slowly. The sink hummed, familiar and steady. My kitchen smelled like soap and cooling coffee. Ordinary spaces help heavy thoughts land. I sat again and opened the notebook to a blank page. I wrote today's date at the top, not to tally debts, but to mark a turn. The pen felt steady, obedient. I wrote one sentence only. I helped because I could not, because I needed to be needed. Then I closed the notebook. Some truths deserve a single line. I am not a dependent mother. I am not a guest in my son's life. I am a woman who gave without keeping score. And that matters even when it is ignored. The hospital's number still sat in my call log. I did not call back yet. Decisions made in clarity last longer. I wanted mine to last. As I stood to put the kettle on again, something shifted. Not anger, not revenge, not fear. Responsibility settled where guilt used to sit. That is how moral debt becomes visible. I understood then that silence had trained me. It trained me to accept less than I earned. But paper does not lie, and memory does not either. I had given. I had not depended. That understanding did not solve anything yet. It prepared me. Preparation is quiet work, and quiet work is how lasting choices begin. After the hospital, silence settled like a slow frost. At first I told myself it was recovery. New mothers need space. New fathers forget to call. Excuses are the softest form of denial. The first day passed quietly. The phone stayed still on the counter. I brewed tea, folded laundry, and checked messages that weren't there. By evening, the house had its old rhythm, again, steady, too steady. On the second day, I texted, "Hope everyone is resting. Sending love." The message turned blue, then nothing. Seen, but not answered. That tiny word seen felt heavier than any insult could. Silence, when chosen, has a shape. Sharp, deliberate punishing. It hums inside your chest until you start to hear it louder than sound. By the third day, I checked the hospital's page. Their feed congratulated the happy couple on the safe delivery. No mention of grandparents. The comments overflowed with hearts and blessings. I typed, "Congratulations," then deleted it. It felt intrusive to speak where I was not invited. I closed the screen and stared at the reflection of my own face instead. On the fourth day, my neighbor, Mrs. Wilkins, knocked on the door. She was holding a casserole, smiling wide. "He's here, right?" The baby, I saw Valerie's sister post a photo. I smiled back steady. "Yes, he's beautiful." She didn't notice the pause before I said it. Politeness hides absence better than lies do. When she left, the smell of baked cheese lingered longer than her visit. That night, I called Evan. The first ring went through, then voicemail. I tried again the next morning, straight to busy tone. It wasn't an accident anymore. It was choreography. Each unanswered call chipped something small but essential, not anger, expectation. You can forgive cruelty faster than you can forgive being forgotten. By the end of the week, I heard updates secondhand. Valerie's cousin posted a story, first bath day. Her mother commented, "Our precious boy looks just like his daddy." I watched Invisible Witness, learning family news through strangers. I started doubting myself. Maybe I had been overbearing. Maybe the quiet was a kind of lesson I needed to learn. Maybe I had misread kindness all these years as belonging. That's the danger of silence. It makes you fill in the blanks with guilt. I replayed every conversation, every meal, every favor. Was I too involved? Too opinionated? Too present? The questions multiplied faster than answers could form. One morning, I woke early and checked my phone before sunrise. Nothing again. No message, no missed call. Just a digital clock blinking like a heartbeat. I wondered when presence became an inconvenience. I wrote a short note in my journal, "Do not chase people who need you to shrink." It sounded wise, but wisdom doesn't warm a cold kitchen. Coffee helps. Wisdom doesn't. The pattern continued, messages seen, calls returned days later, small updates withheld. Each silence carried a tone polite neglect coded in civility. Cruelty wrapped in good manners is still cruelty. When Evan finally called, his voice was casual. "Hey, Mom, sorry it's been busy. You know how it is." I nodded into the phone, even though he couldn't see. I said, "Of course, dear. How's the baby?" "He's great," he replied quickly, then added, "We'll send pictures soon." Soon, the word people used to promise distance politely. The call lasted 4 minutes and 21 seconds. I remember because I counted. After we hung up, I didn't cry. Tears are for pain that surprises you. This was the kind that simply stayed. I returned to my usual chores, watering the plants, wiping the counter, sorting mail. The rhythm of routine dulls sharp emotions, but every time my phone buzzed, my heart betrayed me. Hope is a stubborn guest that never takes the hint. Weeks slipped by. I saw the baby's name announced on a fundraiser page. His middle name was her father's, not a trace of mine. Legacy skipped a generation quietly like a skipped stone. Still, I sent a small gift, a hand-sewn blanket, pale yellow. I left the card unsigned. If they wanted distance, I could make it gentle. Silence doesn't have to be cruel when you own it. The blanket was never acknowledged. No text, no thank you, not even a like on the delivery confirmation. I told myself maybe they were overwhelmed, but my gut knew the truth before my heart admitted it. I began walking more longer routes through the park. Silence outdoors feels different. It breathes. It lets you remember you exist beyond other people's approval. The quiet at home, though, was heavier. It grew roots in every corner around the clock, over the photos, under the door. Even the kettle's whistle sounded too loud against it. I kept one rule: no bitterness. Bitterness ruins clarity. Clarity keeps you sane. I could endure being left out, but not losing myself trying to belong. So I started noting small things again: the date of their call, the time of a missed text. Not to accuse, just to stay anchored in reality. Paper never gaslights you. The last entry I wrote that month said love should not require silence as proof of strength. Then I underlined it twice, once for what I lost and once for what I was learning. I didn't know it then, but that kind of silence, the one that punishes, isn't an ending. It's a preparation. And I was preparing quietly for the day they would need me again. The silence had trained me to expect nothing. That was the cruelest part. So when the phone finally rang on a Tuesday morning, I answered too fast. "May I speak with Ms. Lorraine Brooks?" a woman asked. Her tone was careful, professional, and tired in the way hospital voices get. "This is she," I said, standing in my kitchen with a dish towel in my hand. The kettle was warming. The house smelled like coffee and lemon cleaner. "I'm calling from Coastal Women's and Children's Billing," she said. "We have an outstanding balance related to a recent delivery." She paused, then added, "The account is short, $10,000. For a second, the room tilted, not from shock alone, but from the strange precision of the number. 10,000 is not a mistake you overlook. It is a decision you postpone. "I'm sorry," I said slowly. "You have the wrong person. My daughter-in-law gave birth, yes, but I'm not the patient. You are listed as the payment contact," she replied. "Not emergency contact, payment contact." Her words landed like a stamp on paper. Final, clean, undeniable. I leaned against the counter and looked at my hands. They were steady. My breath was not. "I didn't authorize that," I said. "I wasn't even allowed in the delivery area." The woman did not sound surprised. "I can only tell you what the file shows," she said. "If you'd like, I can read the contact section aloud." "Yes," I said. "Please read it." She began with the patient's name and date of service. Then she listed an address I recognized: Evan and Valerie's townhouse. Then she read a phone number that was mine, my own number spoken back to me like evidence. She continued: payment contact Lorraine Brooks, relationship mother. My throat tightened on that last word. Mother used like a utility label, like billing, like secondary insurance. I closed my eyes and heard the hospital hallway again. Cold fluorescent lights, polished floors, my shoes squeaking as I stood outside a locked door. "She only wants her own family here," Evan had said, soft as if softness made it kinder. I had accepted it. I had walked away without a scene. I had gone home and let silence punish me for weeks. Now the silence had a receipt. "Ma'am," the billing woman asked gently. "Are you still there?" "I'm here," I said. "Can you email me the itemized statement?" I surprised myself with how calm my voice sounded. Calm is not always peace. Sometimes it is survival. "Of course," she said. "It will come from a secure address." She confirmed my email. She confirmed my mailing address, too. Then she added, "The due date is approaching. The balance is eligible for collections after 30 days. "I understand," I said. "Thank you for calling." When I hung up, I did not cry. I did not shout either. I did what I have always done when life tries to make me smaller. I looked for the facts. I opened my laptop at the kitchen table. The screen's glow made the room feel colder. I searched my inbox for the hospital's name, then for statement, then for billing. Nothing. No emails, no reminders, no courtesy notice. Just that call, like a hook in the mouth. The secure email arrived 10 minutes later. I clicked carefully as if the document might bite. A PDF opened. My eyes went straight to the total. Balance due $11,000. Below it, an itemized list of charges marched down the page: labor and delivery services, anesthesia, newborn care, labs, a room charge for days I did not witness. Each line had a number: Each number had a cold confidence. I scrolled until I saw the section labeled Contacts. That was where the truth lived, not in the total, but in the small print. Emergency contact Evan Brooks. Next of kin, Evan Brooks. Guarantor, Valerie Brooks. Payment contact, Lorraine Brooks. I read it again, slower this time. Emergency contact was not me. Not the woman who raised Evan when his father left. Not the woman who drove 12 hours to be present. Not the woman who kept her phone charged and her door unlocked for decades. But payment contact was me. They did not want my hands near the baby. They wanted my name near the balance. I rested my palms on the table and stared at that single line. My chest tightened in a way that felt old, like a familiar bruise. I wasn't trusted with the baby, I whispered, letting the words form carefully. But I was trusted with the bill. The sentence did something inside me. It snapped a thread that had been holding my guilt together. For weeks I had wondered what I did wrong. Now I saw what I had been useful for. I looked back at the contact list. It was neat typed and deliberate. Hospitals do not guess. Someone had filled in my information on purpose. Someone had selected mother from a drop-down menu. I imagined Evan at a registration desk. I imagined Valerie beside him, tired and guarded. I imagined a clipboard or a tablet, a question asked with practice speed. Who should we list as payment contact? And I imagined the answer, given without a pause. My first instinct was to call Evan and demand an explanation. My second instinct, sharper and quieter, told me not to. If I called angry, he would paint me as emotional. If I called begging, he would call it pressure. I had already seen that movie. I would not audition again, so I breathed. I read the statement again. I clicked through the pages for anything else. Insurance information, partial payments, a notation about a remaining patient responsibility. Then I found a line that made my stomach drop. Payment plan requested, yes. Preferred contact method, phone. And there it was, again, my number. A payment plan. Not discussed with me, not confirmed, requested in my name like a favor already promised. I pushed the laptop back a few inches and sat in the quiet. The kettle clicked off, forgotten. The kitchen clock kept moving as if this was normal, as if betrayal belonged in a Tuesday morning. I thought about the long ladder of silent humiliations from the weeks before. Seen messages, delayed calls, updates learned through strangers. Each rung had hurt, but each rung had left space for excuses. This was different. This was not a misunderstanding. It was a structure. It had fields and labels and categories. It had my name in the right box. I stood and walked to the small cabinet where I keep important papers. Old habits, old lessons. Inside were folders with tax returns, insurance letters, and receipts I never threw away. I pulled out a manila folder and laid it open like a map. I wrote the date at the top of a blank page. Then I wrote the name of the hospital, the amount due, and the time of the call. I wrote the words payment contact in capital letters, then underlined them twice. I did not do it to build a case against my son. I did it to protect my reality from being rewritten later. Silence can erase you. Paper keeps you present. The next step was simple. Not easy, but simple. I would verify what I owed, if anything, and what I did not. I would learn what they had signed and what they had not. I would not threaten. I would not plead. I would follow the trail the way the statement invited me to. I opened my phone and hovered over Evan's contact. My thumb did not press call. Instead, I opened a new text message. Hi, Evan. The hospital billing office called today. They listed me as payment contact. Please call me back today. I read it twice before sending. No accusation, no heat, just a fact and a boundary. Then I hit send. The message marked delivered. A few seconds later, it marked seen. Of course it did. I placed the phone face down on the table. Outside, the day was bright, ordinary and indifferent. Inside, something in me had shifted from soft hope to hard clarity. Silence had been their weapon. Now they had handed me a document with my name on it. And for the first time since the hospital hallway, I knew exactly what I was looking at. The email sat unopened all night. When I finally clicked it again the next morning, the numbers didn't change. Neither did the ache behind them. $10,000. My name beside it. The house was quiet enough to hear the refrigerator hum. I'd lived through grief before, but this was something colder: administrative betrayal. I made coffee, poured it into the same blue mug I'd used for 20 years, and set my phone beside me. Evan hadn't replied to my message. The word "seen" still glowed under the gray text bubble. That was answer enough. So I dialed the hospital instead. The call went through a maze of automated voices until a human one finally said, "Billing department, this is Sandra." Her tone was brisk but not unkind. "Good morning," I said. "My name is Lorraine Brooks. I received a statement showing I'm listed as payment contact for a delivery that isn't mine." She paused. Paper shuffled in the background. "Yes, I see it here. Valerie Brooks delivery date March 14th. Balance 10,000 even. I'm calling to correct that," I said. "I'm not responsible for this account." "Were you authorized as the guarantor by the patient?" she asked. "No." "Did you sign any admission documents?" "No." She typed. The keyboard clicks sounded like punctuation marks on years of silence. "Understood," she said. "We can update the record, but we'll need verbal confirmation for our notes." I took a breath. My voice came steady, cleaner than I expected. "You have the wrong number," I said. "I'm not responsible for this." The words were small, only 10 of them, but they carried the weight of decades. Sandra replied, "Thank you, ma'am. I'll remove you as payment contact and issue a corrected statement." When the call ended, I set the phone down and stared at my reflection in the dark window. I didn't look victorious. I looked free. That was the first no of my life, not the polite kind that hides a yes beneath it, a real one. A boundary spoken without apology. The old me would have called Evan right after, would have said, "Don't worry, I handled it," softening the blow so he wouldn't feel embarrassed. But the new stillness in my chest told me to wait. By noon, he called first. His name flashed across the screen, familiar as heartbeat. I answered. "Mom," he began, his voice quick, rehearsed. "Hey, listen, the hospital might reach out." There was some confusion about the billing. Valerie thought I stopped him gently. "They already did," I said, and I cleared it up. He hesitated. "Oh, so, you told them you'd handle?" "No," I said. "I told them it wasn't mine." Silence spread through the line like ink in water. For once, I didn't rush to fill it. He tried again. "We were going to pay you back, Mom. It's just—" "I'm sure you were," I said. "And now you can pay the hospital directly." He exhaled short and sharp. "You don't have to make this a big deal." "I'm not," I said. "I'm making it accurate." Another pause, longer this time. Then he muttered, "Valerie didn't mean anything by listing you. She just panicked." "I'm not angry," I said. "I'm just done being useful without being seen." He didn't answer. The line stayed open long enough for me to hear the faint sound of his breath, unsure, younger than I remembered. Then he hung up. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I walked to the sink and rinsed my cup. Hot water ran over porcelain steam, rising like forgiveness I no longer owed. The quiet after a firm no is different from the quiet after humiliation. It isn't empty. It hums with power. I sat at the table and wrote down the time of the call, the name of the representative, and the exact words I had spoken. "You have the wrong number. I'm not responsible for this." Then I underlined it once, bold and even. Outside, the mail truck stopped at my curb. Through the window, I saw the driver place a white envelope in my box, the corrected statement, "maybe." Proof that a single no can rewrite paperwork faster than a lifetime of compliance. I thought of all the times I had said yes when I meant no. Yes to babysitting when my body ached. Yes to lending money that was never returned. Yes to silence when respect was overdue. Each yes had chipped away a little piece of me. Today, I gathered those pieces back with one sentence. That evening, I received a short text from Valerie. "Hey, Lorraine, we heard you talked to billing. Thanks for sorting that out. We'll handle it. No apology. Just tidy gratitude, efficient and hollow." I typed back, "You're welcome," then deleted it. I owed them nothing, not even civility they didn't mean. Instead, I wrote in my journal, "Saying no does not make me unkind. It makes me honest." The pen moved smoothly without tremor. As the sun dipped below the maple tree, the light turned the kitchen gold. I noticed how peaceful it felt, not lonely, not heavy, just quiet in the right way. For years, I believed motherhood was a promise never to refuse. Now I understood it was a series of choices. Some yes, some no, both made out of love. Tomorrow would bring new consequences. Evan might sulk. Valerie might send another clipped message. That was fine. They had their lesson and I had mine. I closed the notebook, washed the pen ink from my fingers, and turned off the light. The air held a stillness that wasn't punishment anymore. It was mine. That was the day I learned that peace doesn't arrive after people change. It begins the moment you decide not to explain your no. The next morning, my phone started ringing before my coffee finished dripping. I watched the screen light up on the counter like a warning flare. Evan. Then Evan again. Then a number I did not recognize, but my stomach recognized it anyway. I let the first call go to voicemail, not to punish him, to keep my own pulse steady. The second call came before the voicemail notification even arrived. I turned the volume down, not all the way off, just low enough to breathe. By the third call, the kitchen felt smaller. The refrigerator hum sounded louder. The ticking clock felt like it was scolding me. I sat at the table with my blue mug and my notebook. I wrote the date at the top of a fresh page. Then I wrote one line beneath it. I am not responsible for this. I underlined it once the same way I did last night. The phone buzzed again. A text this time, "Mom, please call me." 2 minutes later, another one arrived. "We are in a situation. Please." I stared at the words until they lost their shape. For years, I would have responded right away. I would have asked what they needed. I would have said yes before I knew the question. Today, I set the phone down and washed my cup. Hot water ran over my hands. The steam loosened the tightness in my throat. The phone buzzed again. The tone changed as quickly as weather. "So you really did that?" Then Valerie is crying. I felt that familiar hook in my chest, the one that always caught me. Guilt dressed up as urgency. I did not put my hand on it this time. I let it hang in the air and I let it pass. Another message came in, longer, sharper. "You embarrassed us with the hospital." Then another almost immediately. "They are calling our phones now." I could picture Evan pacing with his jaw set. I could picture Valerie, arms crossed her face, turned slightly away like she was the injured one. The cold hospital hallway returned in my mind. The fluorescent lights, the thin blanket of sterile air, the way I was kept outside a closed door. I remembered Evan's voice that day, low and careful. "She only wants her own family here." I did not argue then. I did not beg. I just turned and walked out with my hands empty. Now they wanted me to pick up the weight again, not the baby, the bill, not the joy, the pressure. The calls kept coming stacked like waves, 4 in 10 minutes, then 6 more within the hour. I looked at the missed call list and felt something strange, not fear, clarity. They were not calling because they missed me. They were calling because I had stepped out of the role they assigned me. I went outside to check the mailbox. The air had a bite to it, crisp and bright. A corrected statement sat among grocery flyers and a coupon book. The paper was clean. My name was no longer tied to their account. It should have made me feel triumphant. Instead, it made me feel tired. How small a change, I thought. How loud their reaction. When I came back inside, my phone buzzed again. A new message from Evan. "Call me now." No please this time. I sat down slowly as if the chair needed permission. My hands rested flat on the table. I waited until my breathing was even. Then I answered the next call. "Mom," Evan said, and the words sounded like a lever he was pulling. His voice was tight, controlled, angry in the way people get when they feel exposed. "I'm listening," I said. I kept my tone level as if we were discussing a bank statement. "What were you thinking?" he demanded. "You could have just paid it and we would have handled you later." Handled you later. As if I was a task, not a person. I didn't sign anything I said. I didn't authorize anything. "That is not the point," he snapped. "The point is, you made us look bad." I looked down at my notebook. The ink line under my sentence was straight. "What you did," he continued, "was cold." I let the words sit there between us. Cold. Not cruel. Not wrong. Cold. He was trying to name me into obedience. I recognized that trick because I had used it on myself for years. "I'm not responsible for the account," I repeated. My voice did not rise. It did not plead. He made a frustrated sound like a door pushed against a stuck frame. Then his tone shifted softer, more dangerous. "Do you even understand what you're doing to us?" he asked. "Valerie just had a baby, Mom." I closed my eyes for a second. I could smell the hospital disinfectant again. I could feel the chill of that hallway. "I understand," I said. "I also understand what was done to me." He exhaled through his nose. Then he said it the line that was meant to cut deeper than any bill. "This says a lot about the kind of parent you are." The sentence landed clean and sharp, not because it was true, but because it was familiar. I had heard variations of it my whole life. If you loved us, you would. If you were a good mother, you wouldn't hesitate. If you cared, you would not make it difficult. I did not defend myself. I did not list my sacrifices. I did not bring up tuition payments, roof repairs, grocery runs, late-night babysitting. That would have been a fight. And fights were their favorite stage. I refused to step onto it. "I'm sorry you feel that way," I said. My voice stayed steady. My words stayed plain. He went quiet, stunned by the lack of fuel. Then he tried another angle. "You always do this," he said. "You always make things about you." I glanced at the corrected statement on the counter. A simple piece of paper. A simple truth. "This is about accuracy," I said. "I am not the guarantor. I am not the payment contact." "You're my mother," he shot back, as if biology was a contract. "And you're acting like a stranger." I did not argue with that either. I let the silence hold it. He filled the gap with a bitter laugh. "Fine," he said. "If you want to be like that, then don't expect anything from us." It was meant to scare me, to threaten me with the thing I had already been living exclusion. My throat tightened, but I kept my voice calm. "I'm not asking for anything," I said. He said my name like it was an accusation. Then he hung up. I stared at the phone in my hand until the screen went dark. The quiet that followed was not peaceful at first. It was raw, like skin after a bandage is pulled away. Within minutes, the text started again. The pattern repeated like a script they had rehearsed without realizing it. First came the pleading. "Mom, please. We need help." Then the guilt. "Valerie's postpartum is bad." Then the blame. "You made this worse." Then the insult sharpened to a point. "I can't believe you would do this to your own family." I did not respond. I set my phone face down on the table. I stood at the sink and watched water fill the kettle. The small, ordinary sound steadied me. My hands shook once, just once, and then they stopped. Not because I was fearless, but because I was finally choosing myself. I thought about what they called family. It seemed to mean access when convenient, silence when it wasn't. I thought about the kind of parent they were describing, a parent who could be used and then dismissed. If that was the role they wanted, then yes, my no said a lot. It said I was done paying for love. It said I was done proving my worth with receipts. The phone buzzed again, one last message for the hour. It was short, almost elegant in its cruelty. "If you don't fix this, don't bother coming around." I looked at the words without flinching. Then I opened my notebook and wrote another sentence beneath the first. "Love is not a bill you can assign to someone else." I underlined that one too. I did not call back. I did not argue. I did not retaliate. I simply set the kettle on the stove. I listened for the first faint tremble of boiling water, and I let their storm rage outside my peace, because that was the moment they realized I was serious, and it was the moment I realized I could survive their anger. The storm didn't end when I stopped answering. It just ran out of places to echo. Days passed, then weeks. No more calls, no more messages. Only silence again, but this time it didn't feel like punishment. It felt like space. I kept my routine. Morning coffee, walks by the park, grocery lists written in blue ink. The world moved at its own pace, indifferent and forgiving at once. Then one Friday, Mrs. Wilkins caught me at the mailbox. Her tone was careful, the way people speak before gossip they think might sting. "Your boy's been having a rough time," she said. "The new baby you know. They say he missed a payment or two on the house." I nodded quiet. I didn't ask for details. I already knew enough from the way she avoided eye contact. She meant well, but her words were another kind of delivery notice. I went inside and sat at my kitchen table. The sunlight was soft that afternoon, the kind that forgives even sharp memories. I took out my notebook, the one with all the dates and small truths. I wrote a single sentence. Some lessons come with invoices I didn't send. That weekend, Evan called again. This time I answered. His voice was thinner, stretched. "Mom, things are tight right now," he said, forcing a laugh. "Just transitional. You know, Valerie's out of work for a while. The bills are piling up." I waited. He didn't ask for help yet, but I could feel the shape of the question forming behind his words. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said simply. "Yeah," he continued. "It's just the insurance messed up the maternity claim, and now we've got hospital balances, utilities, mortgage. It's a mess." There was a pause, then the soft shift that always came before a request. "I know things have been tense," he said, "but maybe we could figure something out. You've always been, good with money." I smiled without letting it reach my voice. "Evan," I said, "I believe you'll figure it out." The line went quiet. He didn't expect that. "Mom, are you really going to just sit there and let us drown?" The question was sharp, but underneath it was disbelief, like a child touching a stove, realizing the heat was real. "I'm not letting you drown," I said. "I'm letting you swim." He sighed hard, frustrated. "Valerie's saying this all started with you. That call you made, she says the collection's triggered because you removed yourself." I let the accusation hang there. It sounded rehearsed, something she'd repeated until it felt true. "I didn't create those balances," I said softly. "I just stopped hiding them." He didn't like that answer. "Wow," he muttered. "This is who you are now. Cold detached after everything we've done for you." That part almost made me laugh. They had done nothing for me but remind me what my absence was worth. "I hope you get through this," I said, steady as ever. Then quietly I added, "I really do." He didn't say goodbye. The call ended with the sound of him exhaling into silence. For the first time, I didn't chase the noise he left behind. I simply let the quiet settle again. Weeks later, word traveled through the neighborhood grapevine. Evan's car had been repossessed. Valerie's part-time job at the boutique had closed. Their mortgage company had filed a notice. I didn't smile when I heard it. I didn't feel satisfaction, only the gravity of natural order returning to balance. Justice, when quiet, doesn't clap. It simply rearranges the air until truth fills the empty spaces. Mrs. Wilkins brought over cookies one morning. "Did you hear?" she whispered. "They're moving in with Valerie's mother for a while, just until things get better." I nodded polite. The news landed gently like a raindrop on still water. After she left, I stood at my window looking out at the driveway where I used to park when I babysat their first child. I could still remember the laughter through that open window. It used to make me proud. Now it just sounded like a past life. Later that day, I got an email from the same hospital billing office. It was a routine notice, account update, confirmed. Contact name successfully removed. No balance, no demand, just closure. I saved a copy in a folder labeled Resolved Matters, a fitting title for more than one thing. I didn't tell anyone about the message. I didn't send it to Evan or print it out as proof. Quiet justice doesn't need an audience. In the evenings, I started taking longer walks. I passed houses with porch lights glowing and families gathering for dinner. It used to sting, those images of what I thought I'd lost. Now it reminded me that love isn't confined to bloodlines. It's found in how you live after disappointment. One evening, I saw Evan across the grocery store parking lot. He was carrying a baby carrier, juggling a paper bag that looked ready to split. Our eyes met just for a second. He looked away first. That was enough. No anger, no scene, just acknowledgement that life had moved to a different chapter. In the car, I sat for a moment before starting the engine. The quiet inside felt earned, not victory peace that didn't depend on anyone else's apology. I thought about the word consequence. People think it always means punishment, but sometimes it's just clarity taking its natural shape. I hadn't ruined their life. I had simply stopped financing their version of it. And when you stop feeding denial, truth starts feeding itself. At home, I wrote one last note in my journal that night. The universe balances what we're too polite to confront. Then I closed the notebook and placed it beside the folder labeled Resolved Matters. Outside, wind moved through the trees with a soft rustle. the kind that sounds almost like applause. Not for vengeance, not for victory, just for closure, earned quietly. That night, for the first time in years, I slept without checking my phone. No missed calls, no guilt, just silence that finally meant peace. Spring came slow that year. The cold didn't leave all at once. It withdrew politely, inch by inch, like someone leaving a room without closing the door. By April, the air smelled softer. I started walking to the community center again, something I hadn't done since before the baby was born. That morning, I saw a familiar face sitting by the bulletin board. It was Harriet Cole. We'd worked together at the accounting firm years ago, back when late nights and spreadsheets were the rhythm of my life. She looked older, but so did I. "Lorraine Brooks," she said, smiling wide. "I thought that was you, still walking with that same upright posture." I laughed. "And you're still wearing those scarves." We sat down together, and just like that, a quiet friendship returned. Harriet had always been one of those people who asked questions without turning them into sympathy. She looked at me for a moment before saying, "I heard about your son. Small town, you know how it travels." I nodded. "Yes. People talk. But I've stopped defending the story." She smiled softly. "Good. Defending the truth makes you sound guilty." Her words landed with surprising ease. We talked about work, about her retirement, about her garden that refused to grow tomatoes. But eventually, the conversation circled back, as they always do, to family. "Do you miss him?" she asked. I thought about it for a long time. "I miss who he was," I said, "but not who he became around me." She nodded slowly, her eyes kind. "You know, boundaries aren't abandonment. Sometimes they're the only version of love that works." The sentence stayed with me long after we hugged goodbye. It repeated itself later that night as I stood by the sink drying dishes. Boundary does not mean abandonment. That weekend, I cleaned out a drawer I hadn't touched in months. Inside were old letters from Evan Father's Day cards from kindergarten, thank you notes from college. Each one had the same handwriting, growing sharper with age. The words were full of gratitude, promises, affection. Somewhere along the years, that vocabulary had disappeared. I stacked them neatly and tied them with a thin ribbon, not to keep the past alive, but to honor that it existed. 2 weeks later, Evan called. The number flashed on my phone like a ghost I had already forgiven. I answered. His voice was quieter than I remembered. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, Evan." There was a pause, the kind of silence that carries an apology before it's spoken. "I owe you one," he said finally, "for the way things went, for everything. I didn't rush to make it easier. Apologies only grow when they have to stand on their own." "I didn't see what I was doing," he said. "I thought I was protecting Valerie, but I was really just trying to prove I could stand without your help. You could have just said that," I replied. "I know," he said, "but I was proud and scared." His honesty didn't surprise me, it was overdue. What surprised me was how calm I felt listening. No surge of anger, no desire to forgive instantly, just clarity. "Mom," he said again, voice lower, "I want things to be better. I really do." I looked out the window. The late sunlight had turned my garden golden. "You mean between us?" I asked. "Yes. I want you to come see the baby," he hesitated. "Valerie does too." I could hear the strain behind that line. Maybe a truce, maybe guilt. Either way, it wasn't the full story. "I'm glad you asked," I said. "But before I answer, I need to be clear about something." He waited. I could almost feel him bracing for disappointment. "I love you, Evan," I said. "That will never change. But loving you doesn't mean stepping back into what hurt me." He exhaled slow and shaky. "I understand." "No, you don't," I said softly. "Not yet. Understanding means respecting it when I keep space." He was quiet again. Then he asked, almost whispering, "So does that mean you won't come?" "It means," I said carefully, "I'll come when there's room for me, not just need for me." I heard him breathe in deeply, like he was about to argue, but he didn't. He just said, "That's fair." We talked for a few more minutes. He told me the baby's name's Samuel. He said he was crawling now, already trying to stand. I smiled as he described it, imagining the tiny hands reaching up. "I'll send you a picture," he said. "Thank you," I replied. After we hung up, I sat for a long while in the quiet. The house didn't feel empty anymore. It felt intact. Later that night, the picture arrived. The baby had bright eyes and a small dimple near his mouth, Evan's dimple. The caption said, "He's trying to walk. Guess he gets that from you." I stared at the photo for a long time, not with sorrow, but with something gentler. Hope not for repair, but for evolution. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I printed the picture and pinned it to the corner of my fridge. It sat there beside a grocery list, a library receipt, and a note I'd written to myself months earlier. Peace begins when you stop auditioning for love. That night, I called Harriet. She answered with her usual laugh. "Did he reach out?" "He did," I said, "and it wasn't terrible." "That's a start," she said. "But remember, healing isn't a reunion. It's a rewrite." We talked about her garden again, about tomatoes that finally started growing. I smiled. Maybe it just took the right season. Or the right distance, she said. When I hung up, I felt something quiet but undeniable shift inside me. The ache was still there, but softer, more truthful. It wasn't the ache of loss. It was the stretch of growth. I went to bed early, leaving the window cracked open. The night breeze carried faint laughter from the neighbor's porch. It didn't sting this time. Healing doesn't always bring people back. Sometimes it just brings you home to yourself. And that was enough. The picture of my grandson stayed on my refrigerator for weeks. Not because I needed it to prove anything, because it reminded me that life keeps moving even when your heart feels stuck. I did not rush back. I did not drive to their house the next day. I did not send long messages trying to sound forgiving and easy. For the first time in my life, I let time do its honest work. Evan texted once a week after that. Short updates. A photo of Samuel sitting up, a video of him babbling at a spoon, a message that said, "He smiled when I said your name." I did not know if that part was true, but I let the words land softly. One afternoon, a month after Evan called, he asked if we could meet. Not at their house, not at the hospital, not in a place where I would feel like I was trespassing. He suggested a park near my neighborhood, the kind with 2 picnic tables and tired swings. I agreed. Then I sat with that decision for a long time. I ironed a simple blouse that morning. Nothing fancy, nothing dramatic, just clean, crisp, and mine. I put on the earrings my sister gave me years ago, the ones that made me feel like myself on hard days. When I arrived, Evan was already there. He looked thinner, not sick, just worn down by consequences that do not care about anyone's pride. He stood when he saw me. "Hi, Mom." His voice had that careful tone people use when they finally understand they might lose someone. "Hi, Evan," I said. I kept my hands at my sides. I did not open my arms like an apology. Then I saw the stroller, and for a second, my breath caught. Samuel was there wrapped in a soft blanket, his little fingers curling around the edge. He looked bigger than the pictures, more real, more human. His eyes were wide and curious, and when the breeze moved his blanket, he kicked as if he was arguing with the air. Evan cleared his throat. "I wanted you to meet him somewhere that felt safe," he said. "Safe for you." That word mattered more than he knew. I nodded once, slow measured. He leaned down and unbuckled Samuel. The baby made a small sound, not quite a cry, more like a question. Evan lifted him carefully, then looked at me like he was asking permission. "Would you like to hold him?" he said. My hands did not move right away, not because I did not want to, because I was tired of pretending moments like this erase everything else. I looked at Samuel, then I looked at Evan. "Yes," I said, "but I want to do this my way." Evan swallowed. "Okay," he said. "Whatever you need." He placed Samuel in my arms like he was handing me something fragile and sacred. Samuel's body was warm, heavy in that sweet baby way. His breath smelled like milk. His cheek brushed my forearm, and he made a tiny sigh that felt older than his age. I did not cry. I did not perform gratitude for anyone. I just held him. Steady, respectful, present. Samuel stared at my face like he was reading it. Then he reached up and grabbed one of my earrings with surprising strength. Evan laughed quietly. "He's stubborn," he said. "He gets it honest." I looked at my son. "Stubborn is not the problem," I said. "Pride is." The words were calm, not sharp. Still, Evan flinched a little because truth does that when you are not used to hearing it without yelling. We sat at a picnic table. Samuel fell asleep against my chest, his tiny mouth slack, his hands still tangled in my blouse. Evan watched me like he was seeing a version of me he had forgotten existed. After a long silence, he said, "Mom, I'm sorry. For the hospital, for the way I spoke to you, for letting you be treated like you were optional." I stared at the trees for a moment. The leaves were bright. The air smelled like cut grass and spring dust. A dog barked somewhere far off and someone's laughter floated over from the playground. "I accept that you're sorry," I said, "but an apology is not a reset." Evan nodded quickly. "I know," he said. "I'm not asking for a reset. I'm asking for a chance to do better." I shifted Samuel slightly so his head rested more comfortably. I felt the weight of him, and in that weight I felt the old pattern trying to return, the pattern that said, "Take care of it, fix it, cover the cost." I would not live that way again. "Here's what doing better looks like," I said, my voice quiet. "You don't call me when you need money. You call me when you want a relationship." Evan's face tightened. He looked down at his hands, then back at me. "We're struggling," he admitted. His voice dropped to a whisper. "That hospital bill. The insurance didn't cover all of it. Then the rent went up. Valerie's leave ended sooner than we expected." I listened without interrupting. I did not enjoy hearing him struggle, but I would not let guilt carry me back into the old role. Evan continued, "I'm not asking you to pay it. I'm telling you because I want to be honest." That was new, so I gave it the respect it deserved. "Thank you for saying it that way," I replied. Then I added, "And I'm going to say something you might not like." Evan swallowed again. "Okay. I am not your emergency fund," I said. "I am your mother. Those are not the same thing." His eyes filled, but he held himself still. "I know," he said. "I know you're right." The wind lifted the corner of Samuel's blanket. I tucked it back gently. Small hands, small care, no cost, no bargain. Evan rubbed his palms together. "Valerie wanted to come today," he said, "but she thought it might make you uncomfortable." I kept my voice neutral. "Valerie can join us when she's ready to speak to me like a person," I said, "not like a problem." Evan nodded. "She will," he said, but he did not say it like a promise. He said it like a hope. We stayed in the park for almost an hour. We talked about Samuel's sleep schedule, about how Evan was trying to pick up overtime, about how I'd started going back to the community center. I told him about Harriet, about her tomatoes, about the phrase that stayed with me. Boundaries are not abandonment. Evan listened more than he spoke. That alone felt like a quiet victory. Before we left, Evan asked, "Could we do this again next week?" I looked down at Samuel, now awake again, blinking at the light. Then I looked at my son. "Yes," I said, "we can, on one condition." Evan's shoulders tightened. "What condition?" "You don't use my love as a payment plan," I replied. "You don't offer me the baby when you need relief. You offer me family because you mean it." Evan's face softened in a way I hadn't seen in years. "I understand," he said. "I really do." I stood up slowly and handed Samuel back to him. The moment my arms were empty, I noticed something surprising. I did not feel hollow. I felt whole. When I got home, I made tea and sat by my window. The late afternoon sun fell across my living room floor, warm and steady. I thought about the hospital hallway, the cold fluorescent lights, the way I had stood outside that door, like I did not belong. And then I thought about today. A park bench, a sleeping baby, a son who finally learned to speak without cutting. I did not get my old family back. I got something better. I got my dignity back. Because the truth is simple, even when it hurts. I wasn't trusted with the baby, but I was trusted with the bill. And the day I refused that role, everything began to change. I didn't lose my family. I found my self-respect. If any part of this story felt familiar to you, if you have ever been loved only when you were useful, I want you to know you are not alone. You can love people and still protect your peace. If you feel comfortable, share your story in the comments. Tell me where you are listening from and what boundary you wish you had set sooner.